Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Johnson Space Center here in Houston, Texas. We're going to be giving you a look today at two spacewalks that are coming up for the crew of Expedition 32. The first one's going to be on August the 20th. The second one is going to be on August the 30th. Here to give us more details about all of that is the lead flight director for Expedition 32, Dina Cantella, as well as the spacewalk officer, Keith Johnson. We'll start off with Dina.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Things are going extremely well on Space Station, and our crew is in great spirits and looking forward to our pair of spacewalks coming up. The increment's about halfway over, and the first part of the increment was crammed full of visiting vehicles. Following the Soyuz arrival, we had the 47 Progress that undocked, and we were performing a Coors navigational system redock test. And for that redock test, the first attempt was aborted. I'm sure you've heard that. The Coors system did not activate properly. And so while our Russian colleagues worked on what we were going to do for a redock attempt, we did go ahead and rendezvous and capture HTV, our Japanese cargo vehicle, and the ground and the crew did an excellent job with that. And then they berthed it on the same day. And the following day, 47 Progress did come in with a successful docking. The Coors NA, that new system, was warmed up inside the Progress just a few degrees, but enough to allow its activation. And so that's how we were able to successfully dock 47 Progress. 47 Progress undock went extremely well, and 48 Progress launch and docking occurred on the same day, which was a new test of a 4-orbit rendezvous capability, and that went exactly as according to plan. Since then, we've been doing a lot of research and also a lot of robotic operations associated with the exposed pallet to move some research that was externally brought up in HTV over to the space station, over to the Japanese module exposed facility, and also to out on the truss. And so those operations went very smoothly, and we really only had a couple of hiccups. The only hiccup that has affected our operations has been a camera that failed on the SSRMS Canadarm2. It's a boom camera, and after some discussions, we decided that we're going to change that out on this upcoming US EVA, and Keith Johnson will talk about all those details coming up. So, but then to talk a little bit about, our crew and the operations, I wanted to point out that we are, despite all the visiting vehicles, at this point anticipating that we're going to meet our research objectives for this part of the year, and that's an incredibly big step because we have had a lot of systems type of work that we've had to do associated with the vehicles, but we're very proud that we've enabled the crew with a lot of opportunity to get ahead. The crew's been doing a great job, and I think as an example, we had a lot of ground control that was associated with the robotic ops, and this enabled the crew to focus on research and that sort of thing on board while the ground did a lot of the robotic operations. So congratulations to our Japanese, Canadian, and Houston robotics folks for helping us with that. And so first I'm going to talk about the crew a little bit, and then I'm going to go into the Russian segment EVA. So if I could have the first graphic. All right, so on the left is Akihiko Hoshide, and we call him Aki. And to his right is Yuri Malenchiko. And next to him is Sunita Williams, and we call her Sunny. Those three arrived in mid-July. And next to Sunny, you see Joe Akaba, who's currently leading the U.S. portion of station, followed by the ISS commander Gennady Padalka, and then Sergei Revin. And 4 of those 6 are going to be performing spacewalks in the next couple of weeks. Gennady and Yuri will perform the Russian spacewalk on August 20th, and Sunny and Aki will perform the U.S. spacewalk on August 30th. So the next graphic, please. The Russian segment EVA will be in Orlan spacesuits out of the Pirs module, with egress happening Monday at 9:40 a.m. Houston local time. Gennady will be EV1 with a red stripe, and he'll have the helmet camera on. He's previously conducted 8 spacewalks, 6 on ISS and 2 on the Mir space station. Yuri will be EV2 with a blue stripe on his suit, and he's performed 4 EVAs in the past, 1 on STS-106, as well as another ISS EVA, and 2 on the Mir space station. So in terms of their tasks for the EVA, there's 3 main tasks and 3 get-ahead tasks. The crew will relocate a Strela crane to move it off the docking compartment piers and over to the forward end of the Zarya module. And the Piers module will be replaced with the Russian multipurpose logistics module Nuaka when it comes up in 2013, so that crane needs to move. They'll also release a passive spherical satellite pronounced Sphera, or also called T-Vector, that will allow our Russian colleagues to evaluate ground station tracking and modeling for orbital debris. The crew will install 5 micrometeoroid orbital debris shields on the small diameter of the Zvezda module. And then as get-aheads, we've got 3 of those, time permitting. There's 2 external experiments, and also there's an installation of some support struts for the EVA ladder to make it more stable. The expected EVA duration is 6 hours and 25 minutes. And Joe and Sergey will be in the Poisk module near their Soyuz for the EVA, while Sunny and Aki will have access to the US segment and their Soyuz. Next you'll see a video of the Russian segment EVA. This is the aft end of station with the Russian modules surrounding the Piers airlock. The hatch opens and you'll see Yuri and then Gennady egressing onto the EVA ladder. Now looking from above, you'll see Gennady adjusting the Strela 2 foot restraint and Yuri on the tip of the Strela boom, riding it up to the other Strela on the zenith part of ISS on Poisk. The Strela that's in motion is the one that will move over to Zarya, so Gennady then retracts it, as you see here, and he positions it for the big move. Zooming in on Gennady, you can see him here. He's positioning an attached foot restraint for the relocation and stowage. At the top of the screen, you'll see Yuri adjusting his foot restraint so he can position the Strela on Poisk for its extension down to Gennady. So here's the positioning. And now he's extending that upper Strela down to Gennady's worksite for the Strela 2 attachment. The flashing area points out where the 2 Strelas attach. And next you'll see Yuri making his way down the upper Strela boom to assist Gennady in releasing Strela 2 from its mounting location on Piers. And they work together to get it into a good position for the relocation. Here they're rotating Strela 2 so that it's in line with Strela 1, and that'll make it a more compact package on the end of the boom for the maneuver. So after everything's squared away, Yuri translates up to the base of the upper Strela so that he can manipulate the Strela mechanisms and begin the big relocation. So Gennady gets a really fantastic view as Yuri pitches Strela up. And he also positions Strela 2 by spinning it around, and then he turns the entire Strela to face Zarya. And now you can see the move over to the forward end of Zarya, followed by an extension of the boom. Yuri's just using hand cranks to operate the Strela. So Yuri then translates forward on ISS down the Strela to meet up with Gennady and help with the removal of Strela 2 and its installation. And so after some manipulation, they work together to install it onto an adapter on Zarya. Yuri gets a short ride for the pitch down to stow Strela out of the way. And here you see him making his way aft on ISS, translating on Strela, and back to Poisk so he can drive Strela again. Now that the work is done on Zarya, Gennady hops on the end for his ride back. And once again, he'll get an amazing view. Strela is going to maneuver him back down to Piers, and this Strela will remain extended between Poisk and Piers at the end of the EVA. So here's the attachment area. And at this point, Gennady also has the opportunity to grab the first external experiment, SKK. You see it flashing. SKK is a materials experiment that allows for exposing multiple materials to space, and it closes up like a small briefcase, and it's brought inside. So here you see it flashing and folding up. So Gennady and Yuri are going to make their way back to the EVA ladder on Piers to deploy the spherical satellite, and here you see it flashing. The satellite's about 21 inches in diameter and has a mass of about 20 pounds. It's completely passive. In the right-hand photo, you see 2 items. There's a mock-up of the sphere and also a tool to the right that holds the sphere while the crew egresses the airlock and gets into position. Before deploy, the crew releases a strap on the tool so that just the fingers are gripping it, and then they give the tool a push to launch it. It's deployed in the aft nadir direction, and it's expected to stay on orbit for about 3 months before re-entry. Next, you see Gennady and Yuri retrieving the debris shields from the airlock in 2 bundles. Here you can see the installation sites on this graphic. And there's a total of 5 shields. They're bundled in a package of 3 and a package of 2. The bundles get separated, and the shields attached to the handrails on the small diameter compartment of Zvezda. So in this video, you can see the 3 portside shield installation sites. These shields are similar in design as what we've previously installed on past EVAs. So next you can see the second external experiment that the crew may bring inside if they have time. This is called BioRisk, and it has experiments inside that have been exposed to space. This is a photo of the Piers module on the right with a close-up view showing the BioRisk containers. Here you see a get-ahead to install 2 struts on the EVA ladder, which should help for stability. And this equipment will later move to the new airlock on Nuaka. After that, Gennady and Yuri will ingress the piers, and we'll call it an EVA. So the only thing I wanted to add here is that for the lead ISS flight director for the Russian segment EVA, that will be Jerry Jason, and for the US EVA, that will be Ed Van Cise. And so with that, I'll pass it over to Keith Johnson, who'll describe US EVA 18.
Thank you, Dina. Well, let's see, this is the first USA in over a year. The last EVA that was performed on Space Station by the US team was by Mike Fossum and Ron Guerin during the STS-135 mission back in July. Our first slide, we have pictures of our EV crew members. We've already mentioned that Sunny Williams is EV1 on this EVA. She'll have the red stripes on her suit. This will be her 5th EVA. She's done 4 so far during Expedition 14 and 15, totaling about 29 hours and 17 minutes of spacewalk time, so she'll be adding to that. Our EV2 for the upcoming EVA is Aki Hoshida. We call him Aki, and this is his first spacewalk. He will be the 3rd Japanese astronaut to do a spacewalk following Takao Doi and Suichi Noguchi. So let's see. Joe Akaba is the the arm operator for the EVA. Aki will be on the arm for the majority of the EVA. And then we have a ground-based IV crew member, which is Jack Fisher, and he's not done an EVA before, but he's helping out with the development of the EVA. I've got a slide that shows our list of tasks. The first thing we're doing on the EVA, and the main reason for going EVA, is the main bus switching unit number 1, removal and replacement. This particular box has failed in such a way that it's passing power, but it can no longer be switched. And in order to do future operations, we need to take that box out and put one in that allows us to do that. Another task that we're doing on the EVA is cable routing 2 primary and redundant power cables to the Russian multipurpose laboratory module that Dina referred to. We started on the US segment and run it over to the interface between the Russian and US segment. And then the Russians will later on run their half of that cabling. Just recently, we had a failure of one of the cameras on the SSRMS, the Boom B camera. This morning we had meetings with management, and we decided that this is the next highest priority. So that camera will be removed and replaced. As our get-aheads, and time permitting, the next task we have is a protective cover installation on the pressurized mating adapter 2, which is at the forward end of station, and we are covering it up so that we protect against micrometeoroid debris and keep it safe until we fly up a new docking system that's coming up, and then we'll take that cover off and install that in the future. We do have other camera problems that we're looking at. One of them is on the mobile base system, the mast camera, and in order to bring that home, we will be removing that camera, bringing it inside. Also, there is a camera problem on the Kibo exposed facility, and we will be, as a get-ahead, removing and replacing that if time permits. And finally, the Zarya Power Data Grapple fixture, the PDGF, has a potential for another wire that may cause problems, and we may send the crew over to pull that debris out. So I've got a graphic that shows some footage of the EVA as we have it going. So if you'll bring up the next. Okay, so the EVA depress starts at about 6:45 Central Time, and with the crew coming out the hatch at about 7:15 a.m. Sunny Williams is EV1. She'll be the first one out of the hatch, followed by Aki. Aki will be handing out bags and tools. Sunny's first task is to hook up what we call a fish stringer, which is a tether with many hooks on it, and she'll attach bags and tools to that in preparation for the EVA, kind of a staging ground. After she's done with that, she'll rotate around to face the external stowage platform, which is where we have the spare main bus switching unit. In preparation for stowing the failed unit, we install what's called a multi-use tether end effector ball stack multi-use end effector. It's kind of a grapple on one end, grapple on the other. I'll refer to that as the MUT ball stack from here on out. And you see that blinking right now. After she's done with that, she'll remove straps on multi-layer insulation that's protecting the main bus switching unit as it's attached to a flight releasable attachment mechanism. She undoes Velcro straps, peels that back, gets it out of the way to expose the main bus switching unit. She'll put a torque multiplier on the two bolts that hold us onto the fram. Once she breaks the torque on those, she'll install what we call a scoop, which is a handling aid that allows Aki to pull this out when he removes it later on in the EVA. Once that's done, Sunny will turn around. She'll grab a bundle of cable, which is the MLM power cable, and she'll translate up to the lab Node 1 interface and hook up one end of that cable to another cable and start routing that aft. And you can see that highlighted in the video. She'll temporarily stow it attached to one of the handrails in the lower left. And meanwhile, Aki will be doing a translation adaptation. He'll take a bag with tools in it. He'll translate up to the S0 truss, phase 2 of the S0 truss. You'll see a handrail flashing in the graphic. He'll attach his tools in the bag to that handrail. And then he'll go over and he'll break torque on the failed main bus switching unit that you see over there to the left. After those, the torque is broken on both of those, he'll install scoops, which will provide him with a handling aid to therefore install an articulating portable foot restraint on the arm. And then from there, he will ingress the arm and we'll wait for commanding of that box. And we are going to do a power down ups test on this box to see if it comes back to life, just to get kind of a science experiment on it. Once that's done, they'll power it down. He'll drive the bolts, and from there, he'll back away with the MBSU, and he'll start on what we call a joint automated or operator-commanded automated sequence, or JOCAS, which is a pre-programmed arm translation to head him back down. In the meantime, Sunny is going to take the other cable and go towards the interface between the Russian and the US segment and attach the second cable for the MLM to a handrail. And from there, she starts unwinding it and making her way nadir on space station around the PMA. She'll feed it underneath, and then she has to go and move the US crane out of the way. It currently is in the way of her translation path, so she'll get up and she'll do some manual maneuvering to get that out of the way. Then she heads back around and continues routing along Node 1 forward to the S0 truss. And you'll see that blink on the graphic here. She feeds it into the interior of the S0 truss. At that point, roughly, Aki will have made his way down to the external stowage platform 2. He'll take the failed MBSU that he just removed, and he'll temporarily stow it on the MUT end effector that I pointed out before. From there, he'll maneuver into the spare main bus switching unit. He'll drive the 2 bolts, lift it out. He'll ground call the arm back away from the structure, and then the arm will continue motion, and he'll start another JOCAS from this position back up for installation. Meanwhile, Sunny will be working on the S0 truss. And the next fun thing that she gets to do is pull back some MLI that's on phase 3 of S0. It opens up a location where she can climb inside the truss, and you can see the MLI peeled out of the way and the opening that she gets to go inside. Next, you see the graphic of her inside taking the cable bundle, routing along some interior handrails, and that comes over to a panel that's up inside. You'll see the connector flashing. She gets herself into position. This was launched with some strings holding the bales in place. You can see those 3 white strings. She will cut those with scissors, throw the bale in the center, take that cap off, and then connect the cable at that point. When she's done with that, she'll clean up the worksite, cover the MLI, and then she'll go over and provide a set of eyes for Aki installing the spare main bus switching unit onto the S0 truss. He puts that into position, and he drives the 2 bolts, and then Sunny gets to leave and go do other work while he cleans up the worksite. One of the get-aheads that we have for a task, if we're ahead, is the MBS mass camera. We'll have Aki fly up to that position. It's a single bolt to remove that camera. Based on our recent priority change, he'll just take that camera off and bring it back with him. He won't install another camera in place of that. Then the arm will maneuver him back to the MBSU that has the scoops on it, and he'll use that to egress the arm. You'll see that. Down to the lower left, you can see Sunny at the failed MBSU sitting on the MUT ball stack. She'll take that, and she'll swing it around and install it back on the fram. She'll drive the bolts, take the scoops off, clean up the MUT end effector, and then reinstall the multi-layer insulation, and that's ready to sit there until it finds another use. Meanwhile, Aki is removing the articulating portable foot restraint, and he'll reposition that into a worksite interface at this worksite. The arm will reposition and provide him with access to the boom camera you see highlighted here. He will remove this camera and replace it with a spare that we will have brought out with us at the start of the EVA. And then, as time permits, he and Sunny will translate out to the forward end of the space station and install the pressurized mating adapter to cover. It's just a multi-layer insulation that has some Kevlar fiber in it that will protect those surfaces from micrometeoroid debris. And they'll strap that to handrails that you see highlighted in the graphic. When they're done with that, again, depending on time permitting, they may be able to head over to Kibo and the exposed facility. And the forward camera on there has no lights on it. And so as a get-ahead, they may be able to remove that camera and replace it with a spare. It's planned for a 6.5-hour EVA, so at this point, they'll clean up their work sites and head back to the airlock, and thus concludes what we hope is a successful EVA.
Okay, we'll take some questions now. First, here in Houston, then we'll go to the phone lines. Let's see, we'll start with Gina.
All right, for both of you, what do you view as the most challenging element on each spacewalk?
Well, I'll just say on the Russian spacewalk, probably the SMOV of the Strela. It's a pretty big apparatus, and it's on the end of an almost 50-foot boom, maneuvering that around. In the past, they've had some trouble where they ran long on this particular task before, or a similar task of moving a Strela. But it wasn't necessarily due to anything in particular, it just kind of ran long. So it could be a timing thing associated with the Strela that could cause, trip them up a little bit and cause the EVA to run long.
Well, I would say from the USA perspective, the crew has seen this in the water several times, so they've got good training. But what ends up happening is we change priorities and we change the tasks that they're being asked that they looked at in their training a while ago. But we think that by getting them the right information and getting them talking with them before the EVA, that we've minimized that particular aspect of the EVA. So our risks are similar in that we want to make sure that we don't let the crew run long on a task. We've timelined it so that we can stop at various points to get them inside. So we're comfortable with that.
In the past, I know there's been concern about gloves, and they've been doing periodic checks on gloves during spacewalks. Is that still an operating procedure?
Well, from the U.S. EVA, yes. We timeline glove inspections throughout the EVA. We are concerned. We have enhanced the gloves and made them better to resist damage that we've seen in the past. But we still do periodic checks to make sure that whatever they've been handling along the way hasn't caused any damage to cause them to come inside. The other aspect of it, that station's been up there for a long time, so we have the crew watch where they're going and make sure that they don't do anything untoward on their gloves.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Gina. Let's go to the phone lines and take some questions from there. I think that we had Denise Chow. I think that we lost one person, so let's see who is. Let's see who's there.
Hi, this is Denise.
Go ahead, Denise.
Just a couple quick questions for the U.S. EVA. Will the astronauts be doing the in-suit light exercise prior to going out?
Well, that's a good question, and thank you for asking. I did have that in my notes, and I did mean to bring that up. Yes, that is correct. We will be doing the in-suit light exercise pre-breathe protocol, and that is currently, with the ways and trades, the best method for prolonged oxygen, and it minimizes the crew activity, and they don't have to sleep out in the airlock. So we find that it is the best protocol, and that's what we will be utilizing.
Thanks. And also for launching the Sphere satellite, how much of a priority is that? And if the Russians don't get to it in their EVA, is that something that might be considered as a get-ahead task for the American EVA?
For the U.S. EVA, you said?
Yeah, for the Russian one, the launching of the Sphere satellite, is that something, if the Russian cosmonauts don't get to it, is that something that might be added to the list of get-aheads for the American EVA?
It's a purely Russian experiment, and so we would have no plans to add that to the U.S. EVA. And it's specifically been designed, the trajectory and everything that we've analyzed. The crew will go out on the EVA ladder and push it aft, and so that doesn't really sync well with our U.S. EVA. It is just a purely Russian type experiment.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thanks, Denise. Are there any follow-ups here, Gina? Okay, we're going to wrap it up. Before we step away, let's take a look at our broadcast coverage here on NASA television for these two spacewalks. The first one coming up on August 20th. Our coverage will begin at 9 a.m. Central Time, with the EVA due to begin at 9:40, and again, it'll last close to 6.5 hours. We'll be back on August 30th for the U.S. spacewalk, which our coverage will begin at 6 a.m. Central Time, 7 a.m. Eastern Time. The actual spacewalk itself will start about an hour and 15 minutes later at 7:15 a.m. Central Time, 8:15 a.m. Eastern. And again, that will last about 6.5 hours. For the latest, just log on to the NASA website at www.nasa.gov/station. Thanks for being with us.